I'm Corbett Wall with DB Auction, here with your feeder flash for Wednesday, October the 28th, brought to you in part by Zactran, an antibiotic from Boehringer Ingelheim that is approved for the treatment and control of bovine respiratory disease, and a lot of you guys are needing that. Remember to observe your 35-day withdrawal period after treatment. For more information, go to Zactran.com or visit with your BI representative. Had stability in the market on Tuesday. Your board was up, not big. Well, actually some of your out front feeder cattle futures contracts were up pretty good. But just some nice firm stability, which felt good to the market. And we should be able to get our feet under the market on your fat cattle trade too. They kept buying them cheaper and cheaper last week, but we're sure set up for $1.05, hopefully $1.06 this week. The way the board looks, and then your feeders should be happy because they're going to have a basis. It's kind of what they're used to after the big drop off last week on your futures, but kind of coming back a little bit. Nothing really big out there to look forward to as far as supplies or anything like that. Our demand is good. Our dressed beef sales have been excellent, and we're not sure if that's some people starting to kind of hoard this stuff because we're seeing some bigger numbers in the COVID starting to come around. I think that's just going to happen from time to time, guys. We're not seeing more deaths, we're just seeing more cases of it. And tell you what, I just wish everybody would go ahead and get it out of the way and get over it. Would be the best thing, and that's kind of what you wish for whenever you're trying to straighten up some of these shipped in cattle. But it's a virus, and that's kind of how they work. But we also saw your feeder cattle market kind of shore up a little bit. It was off really hard last week, and then Monday was down on your trends, just trying to catch up with the losses that were at the end of last week. But actually your real-time index was a pinch higher on Tuesday, albeit there was many sales in the northern plains on better cattle, which was probably outweighed your southern plains sales because of the ice storm and everything. There wasn't a lot of receipts in those, so that was helping prop that up a little bit. But you know, anyway, it was stability, and we'll take that. We'd be glad to get it anytime we can get it. Some of the news that come out here early in the week, if you noticed, your mainstream ag media, in particular DTN, put out some stories with the talk about the support that we've seen from several NCBA affiliates, state affiliates, for the Cattle Market Transparency Act that's been put up. It's Senate Bill 4647 introduced by Deb Fischer, and in the House it's HR 8557 by Vicky Hartzler, and that's the one we've talked about it here on several different occasions, where it asks for flexibility, but to have a mandated minimum negotiated cash trade requirement per region to be established at a later date, but I'm sure they'll make it something that's achievable per region. And I've said it many times, the 50-14, the 50% that we were trying to get before and would still like to get if we could get it. That 50 is a big ask in the Southern Plains, guys. When you've got Texas sitting at 6 or 7% negotiated cash trade, it'd be hard to get them all the way to 50. But you know, I would think that something kind of a compromise that would work great to just go 20, 30, 40, 50. You know, 20 in Texas, 30 in Kansas, 40 in Nebraska, and 50 in Iowa. And you guys would probably like to have more than that, but I'm just saying that would be something that would be achievable, that we could get. Of course, Colorado, there's not enough trade there, or we don't see enough of it come through confidentiality to really tell what it is. But anyway, we did see ag media come in and recognize that we had a big contingency of state affiliates, state cattlemen's associations, that have signed on to a letter in support of the Cattle Market Transparency Act. And it was kind of a to see. But the way that the story did, the one that I read anyway, the one that was distributed the most on the internet there, it was kind of talking about how maybe these 17 state affiliates were going rogue a little bit, or stepping outside the lines, disagreeing with NCBA, because we know NCBA is not in favor of the Cattle Market Transparency Act. But you know, on top of having the minimum cash trade requirement, it also talked about having the packers report the number of cattle that they have scheduled for delivery each day for the next 14 days. That would be kind of useful, and give your cattle sellers some tools to try to help them negotiate with, and also loosen up some of the transparency where we could see some of the formulated deals that these packers have with their sweetheart buddies, mostly your corporate feeders, and actually put together a library of those formulated contracts where the rest of your guys, the guys that are really establishing the base price for most of those formulated deals, they could kind of see what's going on, and they could use that to arm themselves a little better. But I love to give credit to all those state affiliates that have signed on to the letter in support of Cattle Market Transparency Act. I'll hit them real quick. 17 of them: Alabama, Arkansas, Georgia, Iowa, Illinois, Minnesota, Mississippi, Missouri, Nebraska, New Mexico, North Dakota, Ohio, Oregon, South Dakota, Tennessee, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. Tell you what, that's a pretty good contingency, and I would say that would make up probably half or better of your national members of the Cattlemen's Beef Association. But that's a lot of big dogs there in the Corn Belt, the Midwest, and in the Southeast, and then over in your mountain states. And we appreciate New Mexico getting on there and shucking off the pressure from your big bullies in the southern plains. And you wonder, well, gosh, where's Montana and Oklahoma? Well, we haven't seen Montana really commit to anything. So I have talked to some producers from up there that were really in favor of 30-14 and 50-14, and can't understand where Montana's at. We're very disappointed in Oklahoma, because Oklahoma, the part that they don't claim for the most part, no man's land, is the only place that they have any feedlots. And for the lion's share, 90% of the state is all cow-calf producers and backgrounders, and that's what this bill is really for. And we can't understand why Oklahoma would throw in, but if you know the politics about the deal, then you kind of understand why Oklahoma didn't throw in, and they stuck really close to their bosom buddies, Texas Cattle Feeders and Kansas Livestock Association. But just as we see some media coverage about how many producers and how many state associations are in support of Market Transparency Act, there we have learned that the NCBA has sent a letter directly to the ag committees in both houses, both the Senate and the House of Representatives, and the ag committees there, to the leaders of those committees, trying to take the legs out of the support that the rest of the affiliates have given it. They've sent a letter in there, and they've got a bunch of state affiliates signed on too, although not as many, and not as many of the most influential state associations. They have those listed on their letter, and they are saying that basically we've all agreed here that we were going to go after something on a voluntary basis, and you need to give us time to see whether or not that works. And they're talking about that joke of a 75% deal that I've told you about last week a couple of times. It's a voluntary deal. It's shot full of holes. Any teeth in it have been kind of rasped off, where it's not ever going to amount to anything. You've got to hit 3 minor triggers, and then that makes 1 major trigger, and then you get 2 major triggers within a certain amount of time, and then ultimately, if the stars completely line up at that point, then NCBA will get behind, or say they will get behind and support some kind of a legislative mandatory minimum negotiated cash trade. Why don't we just skip over that? We know there's a problem. Everybody knows there's a problem. The Packers have even admitted there's a problem. Your big corporate cattle feeders even admit there's a problem. They've abused the small independent negotiated cash seller for about 20 years now. And there comes a time where you have to do something about it, you know. For the most part, it was your farmer feeders and your kind of renegade independent cattle feeders, the old school crusty guys in the Southwest or Southern Plains that continued to sell cattle on a negotiated cash basis, and your big corporate feeders just sat back and let them do it and establish a base price for them, and then they got all kinds of kickers and deals to promise all their cattle to one packer, and then they've been making a handsome living off of it while all your smaller cattle feeders are going broke. And that's basically what it is. We did have some of your larger family feeding operations, but for the most part, they've all thrown in with the packer too, because they've seen that they can't beat it. You know, when we got to COVID, and we realized during the COVID that some of those formulated deals, sweetheart deals, also included profit sharing and or your dressed beef prices. And so it got cheaper for your packers to let their buddies, their partners, lay and not pick their cattle up and go over to some of these junk cattle feeders and these independents that had cattle ready. Even though everybody was needing to move cattle, they were going over there and buying those cattle because they were cheaper in the long run, because they had inflated the wholesale beef prices so much they couldn't afford to pay those formulated deals that they normally, that's their bread and butter. But I know that's kind of complicated, but those of you that know what I'm talking about know what I'm talking about. But they've in this letter that NCBA has sent to these committee leaders, they're saying, well, we had unanimous support for this voluntary attempt to get this deal straightened out. Yeah, the unanimous support was at the summer meeting, whenever your big bullies with all the votes beat down a larger contingency of state affiliates who were in support of the 50-14 deal for 6.5 hours. They beat them down and beat them down, and it got to where the vote was going to be so close, but your basically your northern Midwest guys that were wanting 50-14 were not going to be able to get it. Then they finally just had to kowtow to your NCBA guys and try to get something out of the deal. They'd fought all day long, tooth and nail and months, trying to get the support together and just come very, very close and didn't get it. I guess if you want to call that unanimous, that's one way to force unanimous. But the NCBA letter, like I said, made out particularly to Pat Roberts, who you know, he's going to stick with the Kansas Livestock Association. He's got close ties with lobbyists for some of the more crooked packers, and he's not going to give in a bit. But he's a lame duck. So basically, your other side that was in support for Market Transparency Act, we're just going to kind of let their support build and get ready for a big bang once he packed his bags and left D.C. And it's going to happen. He's already got a replacement. He's just kind of sitting there until the new elected officials are going to be sworn in. So, but NCBA has tried to get in there and get this whole deal squashed by telling these committee leaders that, oh, we've got this deal handled, don't worry about this, we've got a thing in place, and we had unanimous support for it. Yeah, unanimous support. But they had 13 affiliates sign on for them. You guys can listen to these affiliates that have signed on with the NCBA to continue to despise and put off and not allow minimum negotiated cash trade requirement, which is what we have to save this industry, guy. And it's not necessarily for your cattle feeders, it's for your cow-calf producers, your backgrounders, the guys that need a stout, big, one-price fat cattle market out there for everything else to be kind of attached to. But your 13 affiliates that were signed on to NCBA's letter were Arizona, California, Colorado, figures. Florida, that was a little surprising, as many cow-calf producers as they have out there. Hawaii, Idaho, the Idaho people that I met here 2 weeks ago that went to the Feeder Flash rally, they wouldn't have been those types. Of course, Kansas Livestock Association, Louisiana, which surprises me a little bit, your weak sister Oklahoma that's hanging on to the other big boys' tails, Texas Cattle Feeders, Washington, and Texas and Southwestern Cattle Raisers Association is signed on to that bill, or at least they've got them listed. And actually, TSCRA had decided to throw in with your Midwestern guys that were trying to get market transparency at the summer meeting. So that surprises me a little bit and disappoints me quite a bit. But we'll get on and talk about the markets. Let's talk about the board for Tuesday. October live cattle futures up 87 cents at 104.85. December up 65 cents at 104.05. Going out from there, they were all up 62 to up $1.30. Very encouraging on your out front live cattle contracts. October feeder cattle up 60 cents at 134.30. November up $1.72 at 132.30. And going out from there, and they were all up also. So banner day for cattle futures, they were up $1.30 to $1.65, so consistently higher. Virtually no fat cattle trade so far. So your cattle sellers are digging in a little bit. They've kind of got the board helping them out a little bit, but they want to keep the basis. So I would say 105 is a shoe-in. I think maybe 106. And if the board continues to rally, maybe we could go on up from there and get back up there kind of where we were. But tell you what, 106 is sure doable deal this week so far the way things look. Box beef cutout values choice on Tuesday afternoon, 206.70 down to $1.13. Select 188.67 up 18 cents. Your slaughter is kind of trailing behind a little bit. We'd like to see that boosted a little bit, but 232,000 for the first 2 days. That's down 7,000 from a week ago, up 3,000 from the same week a year ago. Talk about your feeder cattle market, your real-time index on DV auction, 132.91, up 38 cents compared to the end Monday's close. So like I said, that was supportive, but we had a lot of those northern plains type sales, upper Midwest premium type sales that were lifting that average a little bit. Some of your big sales on Tuesday: Ozarks Regional Stockyard, West Plains, Missouri, 1,300 head. They had a light run too. All your lower tier high volume sales early in the week have been really light. Oklahoma City, Joplin, Ozarks, all been light. Ozarks only 1,300. Steady to $4 lower for the most part. Not a good test on yearlings. That steady to $4 lower was pretty well all around, except for some Pee-wee steers and some 6-weight heifers that were a pinch better. Philip, the giant, Philip Livestock Auction, Philip, South Dakota, 4,500 head there. I checked the market on your automated market report. Looked pretty much unevenly steady and just well tested in your calf weights. But look at some of your best tested weights of calves on the steers. They had 1,836 head of 5-weight steer calves. They averaged 560 pounds at 155.23 on the weighted average price, which is pretty impressive. Heifers, 613 head of the 5-weight heifers, averaged 546 at 137.50 on the average. The one stick-out deal I saw was on some lighter weight calves, 53 head of 442-pound steer calves in Phillips, South Dakota. They'd have been fancy at $186. Few other individual top quotes for the day on Tuesday. How about Welch Stockyards, Welch, Oklahoma? Nice family run outfit there. 71 head, 715-pound steers bring 146.85. That was the top quote I saw on 7-weight steers. Riverton, Wyoming, winter livestock there. Look at this quote on some steers weighing nearly 5. 121 head, 489-pound steers bring 167.75. And then the Christensen's, the Kimball Livestock Exchange, Kimball, South Dakota, 70 head, 857-pound steers bring 143.10. And that's your feeder flash for Wednesday.